Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. I thought it'd be fun to do something with a feature again today, and so I think I'm going to do a coin pendant that has a hidden compartment behind it. So kind of like a coin locket, I guess it would be, but it shouldn't be visible from the front and should be kind of a fun little feature. You can keep your secret manifesto in there, or a pill you have to take every day, or you could keep a picture of your favorite child. You know, just don't tell the other one. Um, but it should be it should be a fun project though. So I'm going to give it a try and see how it turns out. Before we do that though, I wanted to thank my patrons over on Patreon. They are my core group of supporters and they are a marvelous group of people. I could not do this without their help and their support, and they have created a lovely community over there. So thank you for being like that. You guys are awesome. My YouTube subscribers are the other group I like to thank. We just passed 26,000, which is awesome and amazing. Thank you for that. Thank you for the lovely comments. I appreciate input if it's constructive, and I also appreciate hearing how you do things. That's always nice to hear, and I learn a lot of stuff from you. So thank you for that. That's really nice. Thank you also for all the financial contributions, the buying my newest ebook, the buying merch on the merch store, and buy me a coffee, super thanks, all that kind of stuff really helps to keep my channel sustainable, and I couldn't do it without that either, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. Alright, well, let's see if we can make a hidden compartment coin pendant. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks that are available on my merch store. This particular one has some different information about silver solder melting temperatures and flow temperatures, so that's kind of useful stuff. Some of the other ones have charts that convert between millimeters and gauges and inches and stuff like that, so I think it's a pretty useful way to have some extra information you might need frequently. The key feature for me are these little dot matrix in the background because it helps me to draw better pictures, because drawing pictures isn't really my strongest suit. Okay. So here is kind of what I had in mind today. Now I've been going back and forth between different coins. There used to be an antique store near here, and they had this big bin of like really old foreign coins, and I used to go there and they would charge I think 25 cents a piece. So I'd pick out a few and buy them just because they had cool stuff on them. I always was interested in world coins, and so I wish that was still there. It's not there anymore, but that was a really cool way to find some interesting coins, and I have some interesting ones. So I decided to go with this one because it's got a cool picture on both sides. It's a Mexican coin from 1965. On this side, it's got a Mayan pyramid, and then on the other side, it's got the eagle with a snake in his mouth, which is that traditional symbol in Mexico. So I like them both. I'm kind of torn over which side to put face up, but I think I'm going to go with the eagle with the snake. I just like animal coins, so that's pretty cool. What we're going to do, at least in my plan, is I'm going to make a bezel for this. I'm going to put a little lip on the inside of it made out of maybe 16 gauge square, which is 1.3 millimeters wide. I'm going to put a border of 14 gauge square around it just to give it a little bit of an outline of silver, and that's 1.6 millimeters. And then I'm going to create a little dish that fits right in there, and I'm going to try and hook it onto the edge. One of the reasons I wanted that edge was so I had more room to put a hinge on there. And I'm going to try and get it to fit right into that inside cup there, and then we can figure out a way to make that kind of snap in place. I'm thinking I might put a little ball over here that kind of it has to pop past. But we'll see. I think that's about all we're going to do other than throw a bail on there. I'm going to use, for the sides of the little cup, I'm going to use some 10 gauge square that I flattened to about 1 millimeter wide. It's normally 2.6 millimeters wide. That also makes it a little bit taller, so it should make for a good, not too tall compartment, but a suitable size for this kind of a coin, I think. I thought about using a buffalo nickel, but I thought, gosh, that's going to be too small. And, well, I appreciate the history surrounding Benjamin Franklin. That's not really that attractive of a coin. He's got a skullet. And I'm one who used to have a mullet years ago, so. Alright, so let's make a bezel for this guy. Oh, I didn't write that down, did I? 3/16 inch fine silver bezel strip. in 26 gauge, so that's 4.76 millimeters by 0.41 millimeters thick. That's what I generally use. That seems appropriate here. I hope you're all having a nice New Year's and you've all kept to all of your New Year's resolutions. Okay, let's make a little scratch. I like Australian and New Zealand coins are kind of fun because they all have kind of cool animals on them. So, all right, let's set this to the side. If you haven't been to my channel before, here's my setup with torch and soldering things that I typically use. So, I had some cool pennies from the Bahamas once that had little starfish on them. Those were cool for earrings. Wish I had some more of those. Coin earrings used to sell pretty well. You can't use too big of ones though because they get heavy, and then a lot of people really don't like heavy earrings. So I have a pair of, they're either Italian or Greek, and they're pretty good sized coin earrings. And they're big enough to where people look at them and then think about it and then put them back because they're cool, but they're heavy. So when you're doing a little bit bigger bezel like this, because bezels are kind of flimsy and it's hard to get the two ends to line up nice and stuff, if you make a little dimple in the bottom, you do it like this, it makes them a little bit springier. And I find I have better luck getting them to stay together. So, you don't have to make your bezels angular like this. I just think it works pretty well. So, for me anyway. I still need to find a royalty-free ricochet sound that I can use in my videos for when something like that happens. Let's kind of shape this up. I thought about using an ancient coin for this. I have a lot of Roman coins, but they're not very regular most of the time. The outsides are split and the flans are irregular, so it would be kind of hard to make one that was pleasing with a compartment behind it, I think. Plus, like this, if you used a sestertius or something like that, that's pretty big. Those are pretty heavy coins. That would be a beefy pendant. You could swing it around and use it as a self-defense weapon or something as well. Okay, let's see how we did on the sides here. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm going to mark the bottom. Not that it probably matters that much on this one, but... and then let's use some of that 16 gauge square. I have some here that we can make into a little circle. Square wire, you have a tendency, it's going to try and twist sideways on you a little bit because it's trying to stretch out that outer edge and compress the inner edge, and the metal doesn't really want to do that, and so it tries to find an easier way to go. So you got to kind of correct that, otherwise you end up with a diagonal wire. Nobody wants diagonal square wire. I'm going to cut it just a little big, and then we can kind of fine tune it. I have some gaps over here and over here a little bit, so I think if we get it a little bit rounder, use a different tool. This is a mandrel I turned on my lathe. It's kind of in between sizes. Still just a tiny bit too big, I think, so let's take just a little piece out of there. Okay, I think that's about right. So I'm going to solder this closed on this one, and then get it nice and round. I may tap it on my bench block in order to just make sure it's nice and flat. If you haven't seen pick soldering before, that's where you pick up a little bit of solder on the end of one of these tungsten or titanium picks. This one's titanium. And you heat up the piece to the soldering temperature, and you touch it where you want it to go, and it jumps right on there. Timed it correctly. So it's a useful skill if you're interested in learning how to do that. I have a pretty good video about that. I would check it out. It's one of those kind of probably the most important skill I learned when I was doing this in order to speed up and improve my process. I definitely don't want to have it wavy like this. You can kind of flatten it out. Make sure it's all in one plane. That's ideal. Let's solder that on there. And the easiest way I've ever found to do that is to just set it on top of some pieces of solder. Well, that's pretty close in my guess. Okay. Okay, we need to make a lip that goes around the outside too at a 14 gauge square. So I think, let's do that. Let me find some 14. I need about 3 times this, right? Pi times diameter equals circumference. Pi is a little bit over 3. 1, 2, 3 plus a little bit extra. Right? Now I'm going to repeat the process I did to make that one, except it's going to go around the outside. So for time's sake, I'm just going to do that off camera because we have more things to do up ahead. Okay, I got the border pretty snugly fit around there. I've got the bottom fluxed, and I set it on some pieces of solder just like before, sticking that a little bit further now. Sure we're still shaped okay and everything. Looks pretty good. Got a clean seam all the way around. Okay. Now here's that flattened 10 gauge square. I think we need to file the end flat to start with. So we've got it popped in there. Find a pin. It's pretty close, so. Again, I'm going to cut it just a little bit big. Okay, that fits in there. Let's solder that together and then round it out. I'm going to file this flat on the bottom, and then we'll solder it down to a piece of 26 gauge. See if my plan is going to work. So on this one, since I'm going to file off the edge, I'm going to lean them against the outside, or push them up against the outside at least. So, just for measuring purposes, let's put this in here. It's going to stick just like that. So now I think let's mark that level. So I'm going to solder a piece of tubing at that basic level, and then I'll solder one on the back here to match it. So let's just make a mark sort of arbitrarily here. I want it to be pretty sturdy. So I don't want to have too flimsy of a hinge. I think I can just solder that on just like it is. Just like set it on the pad like this because it's pretty much flush with the bottom. So I'm going to cut a little piece off of this. Not that long. So this is the type of tube that fits 18 gauge round wire perfectly, pretty perfectly. One thing you don't want to have happen when you're making a hinge like this, if you've never done one before, is you don't really want to have any solder flow into your tube. So I'm going to pick a little bit on the outside, and then we'll just get everything fluxed, and I'll try and just butt it up against there and heat the whole thing till it flows again, with the idea that we try not to get any solder there. One thing I would also, if you're using one of these little tiny tubes like this, they don't stand up to being picked up while they're hot with the tweezers. They will break or squish on you. And you'll have to start over again with the tube anyway. Notice I'm keeping the heat away from that little tiny tube but heating the other piece. Solder is already stuck to the tube. It hasn't stuck to this yet, so I just need to bring this up to temperature in order for them to flow together. So I'm probably going to file this just a little bit neater, if I can find a needle file. There it is. Yep, we are good. Piece of tube. That should be about long enough. I'm probably going to file this just a little narrower, but if we put this like that, should have enough. And then we'll grind out the middle, but I think I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. So let's get these ends cleaned up a bit. I'll let that cool for a minute so I can pick it up with these. pretty good. Let's make sure we can still get this through there. Sure, that goes through. So now, I'm going to take this down just a little bit more, so it's slightly narrower. So I can make a nice, precise measurement if I make this black with a marker. At least I think this will work. Let's put this in here, centered on that thing. Let's put the coin back in so it sits right. Closer to right. Let's just try and make a mark where that's going to need to go. What I'm going to do is take my jeweler's saw and cut right along those, and then I'll probably just grind out any excess. Okay, so I got the hinge pin through there, and it opens and closes just fine like that. Okay. I need to figure out a little catch here, and I have a thought about how I'm going to do that. We also need to put a bail right on here, so I'm going to make a little loop here, and then I'll add one of my kind of standard bails probably to it. But I think what I'm going to do for the clasp here is going to be I'm going to put a little ball soldered to the inside edge right here, and a little bit of that 16 gauge square wire on either side of that, so it kind of has to pinch together to pop in place there. And then you should be able to grab that square wire with your fingernail and pull it back open, hopefully, once we fine tune the sizes and everything. But we'll do the hinge very last, so let's solder on that loop, and that's going to need to go right. It'll be pretty much straight above here. So, alright, let me see if I've got a little silver ball, or if I need to make one. Probably should make one. That's the central point there. So since I'm going to push this down into the pad a little bit, so those other things don't drop off, find a pretty flat spot here maybe. So I'm just marking on either side of that ball. Okay. See if we can't solder something there. Just elevating that so I can kind of see what I'm doing a little bit. I think this might be a good time to use some medium paste solder. And we'll use easy for the hinge, for the pin. It catches pretty good, actually. So I think I'll leave it like that. I'll probably trim that off a little better, and I'm going to add a bail before I finish. But I may need to file the top of this so it's a little bit lower, so it doesn't butt up against the coin. So I may do that a little bit. But other than that, I'm going to let this pickle, and I think I might finish tomorrow because my neck is starting to hurt. And then, like I said, we'll use a little bit of easy solder for the soldering the pin in, presupposing I can get it out of there in the first place. Okay. So next time I come back, this will all be cleaned up, and we'll solder that in. There will be a bail on here. If you're interested in seeing how I make those bails, there's a link right up there for you. Okay, you can see I've added a bail on the top here. Soldered that on. I think for this last step I'm going to use a little bit of easy solder right on the outside edge of these. Just a tiny bit. You really don't want it to go anywhere but attached to this post right here and the edge of that tube. We don't want it to flow into that inner tube because that'll prevent the thing from moving then. I got some flow there. Let's see if it did what it's supposed to do. Okay, that's better. So I'm going to snip these off right at the end of the tubes. I'm going to probably use a Dremel to, well, let's see if I can get a file in there or not. It's going to be hard to get a file in there, so I'll probably use a little abrasive wheel on the Dremel. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and pickle that, and then I'll get it polished, and we'll set that coin in there, and then I think we'll be done. So I got things polished up. I think it's probably time to set this, not stone, coin. Got it filed down to about where I want it to be. Try and get that eagle sitting upright. I'm just going to push this in. Once you have it kind of pushed inwards, then I'm going to use this rounded outer part of my chain nose pliers as a burnishing tool. That's kind of what I was shooting for. So I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. I'd give myself a B+ on that one, I think. I didn't get the bezel perfect here, so it's a little bit taller over here and not quite tall enough over here. I should have been a little more careful. But I don't think the coin's going anywhere. So I'll get that cleaned up a little bit with the Dremel. I'll get some pictures. Alright, well that was a hidden compartment coin pendant. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you got something useful out of it. If you did, I'd love it if you'd hit the like button for me. That really helps to get my videos promoted, and I do appreciate that. I'd also love it if you'd take a moment and check out my main channel page. I have 670 plus videos now, I believe. There's a whole lot of content over there at a bunch of different skill levels and lots of projects to choose from. So watch a few of those over there. And I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel as well. There's no cost to that, and the advantages are untold. The other thing is, don't forget to hit the video description down below. There's some important links there. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out a little bit about that community over there. There's multiple levels of membership. There's a lowest tier, which is $5 a month, and you can get all of my videos for YouTube without the YouTube advertisement, so that's kind of a nice perk. It also helps me out financially. The other tiers have additional perks, like videos made exclusively for Patreon, as well as some live streams that we do. So I'd love to see you over there as well, so check it out. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks. You can also, on my merch store, get my ebooks, but there's a link directly to them in the video description as well. So those are great guides to all of the videos I did in any given years. I just finished 2025's, and it's got over 200 pages. The project pages each have a picture of the sketch I did, a picture of the final outcome, a list of materials you need to make it, some stone information if it has a stone, a difficulty rating, and then some notes I made about the project. Things like, would I do it differently if I was to do it again? Or did I think it was a good technique? Or did I like the outcome? Did I not like the outcome? I certainly don't always like the outcome. And it also has a link right to the video. So it's a nice way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips at different skill levels, and a really nice way to support my channel. So thanks in advance if you choose to do that. All right, well, thanks for watching today. Hope to see you on another one. Take care. Happy silversmithing.